Well, good morning and Happy New Year. Today we are kicking off the start of our 2019 season with the new council, and we're doing so by introducing several pieces of legislation and calling the attention to hopefully calling the council's attention to these pieces that we introduced during the last council season, and we are hoping very much to work with them on having them completed in this council season. Number one is the Sexual Assault Victims' Rights Amendment Act of 2019. At the end of last year, I voiced my disappointment that the council had not acted on the Sexual Assault Victims' Rights Amendment Act of 2019, also known as SAVRA, and we will be reintroducing that piece of legislation this week. SAVRA 2.0 would have expanded the rights of victims and survivors of sexual violence, extended those rights to more people, and built upon the SAVRA 2014 to further enhance the district's response to sexual violence. We know that as a government, we cannot just talk when it comes to denouncing and responding to sexual assault in our city. We must take action by creating laws and policies that help both victims and survivors. Since introducing SAVRA 2.0 in 2017, my team has continued to work with advocates, and today we will reintroduce this piece of legislation. I want to thank Michelle Garcia and our staff at the Office of Victims Grants and Justice for the very delicate work that they have done with people representing all kinds of viewpoints, and we are advancing a very solid piece of legislation that will make the district safer. We are also introducing Ghost Guns Prohibition Amendment Act of 2019. This next piece of legislation it talks about something that we're all very passionate about, and that's how we can protect our cities from illegal guns. And we are hopeful that with this new Congress in place, we will finally be able to make advances in gun reform at the federal level that's just common sense. So today, we are introducing the Ghost Guns Prohibition Amendment Act of 2019, and this legislation will prohibit the registration and possession of what are often referred to as ghost guns, or any firearm that cannot be detected by a metal detector. Lastly, we are reintroducing the Second Chance Amendment Act of 2019. And finally, this is about rethinking how we create second chances, real second chances for residents, and how we expand opportunity to those Washingtonians who need it. We know that when we remove barriers to housing, education, and employment for some residents, giving them a clean slate, we are actually building a safer Washington. Through the Second Chance Amendment Act of 2019, we will radically reform the district's record sealing process and give more Washingtonians the fair shot they need and deserve. This legislation will mandate automatic sealing for non-convictions, shorten the waiting periods before a person is eligible to seal their record, and expand the eligibility of who can seal their record. Through the Second Chance Amendment Act of 2019, we can open doors and give more people and families access to the opportunities they need to thrive. The last thing I want to cover today is several appointments or reappointments in our administration. First, I want to announce that I am reappointing Hansell Kang as the State Superintendent of Education. Please give Hansell a round of applause. Hansell has led OSSI since 2015, and she has demonstrated tremendous leadership at OSSI. We are excited to have her with us again for a second term. She will work, of course, with Deputy Mayor Kang, with Chancellor Farabee, and with our public charter school leaders, leading our education agencies where we already have a fantastic team and the support of students, families, and educators. Next, I would like to introduce Lindsey Maxwell. Lindsey is to my left. And Lindsey is being named the Director of the Office of Labor Relations and Collective Bargaining. Lindsey has been serving as the supervising attorney at the DC Public Employees Relations Board since 2015, and we are excited to welcome him to this new role. Next, I am formally appointing Andrew Trueblood as the next Director of the Office on Planning. Andrew has served in several roles in DC government, and most recently as the Chief of Staff at DMPED. Andrew is a planner and has worked on many major initiatives and policy priorities for the Deputy Mayor for Planning and Economic Development, from affordable housing policies to our autonomous vehicle initiatives, opportunity zones, and much, much more. Throughout his time at DMPED, he has worked to improve the agency's data and analysis capacities. And as our city is growing, we are looking for more and more big ideas and strong collaboration. And we know that Andrew will bring both to the district's Office on Planning. Lastly, I want to announce that I have appointed Lindsey Parker, the other Lindsey to my right, as the district's next Chief Technology Officer. Please give Lindsey a big round of applause. Lindsey has also served in several roles in district government, and most recently she has served as my Deputy Chief of Staff. And in this capacity, she oversees the day-to-day operations of a 100-person engagement team, manages the budget of the Executive Office of the Mayor, and leads strategic planning initiatives. Lindsey has also worked as a Director for Policy and Government Affairs for the Americans for Responsible Solutions, also known as Gabby Gifford's agency, and she has worked in cybersecurity as a Director of Internal Communications at Symantec. And Lindsey will be focused on bringing efficient operations and innovative solutions at Octo. So please join me in congratulating these new appointees. So with that, I'm going to ask the CA to join me for questions. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Mayor, I didn't hear you appoint Chief Newsham to a new appointment. His contract is up at the end of the month. Do you still have confidence in Chief Newsham?
Chief Newsham will be reappointed, and we're working on his contract extension now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Mayor Bowser, what did you think of Farabee's handling of the sexual abuse case in Indianapolis?
What do I think about it? I think that Dr. Farabee has run a large agency, and what we know about large agencies, sometimes employees do bad things, and that supervisors or the superintendent in his case has to hold them accountable. And that's what's happened there.
And what did you think about how he testified under oath that he didn't know the relationship was sexual, but he had an email that said the relationship was intimate?
I think I've answered your question. I think that Dr. Farabee held the individuals who were accountable for implementing policies and procedures in their jurisdiction accountable. Yes. Yes.
Mayor, in your inauguration speech on Wednesday, you talked about alterations to maybe parts of the city's height limitations. Could you flesh that out a little more than the sentence or two that you gave in your speech? The council chairman this morning says he's reluctant or opposed to changing height restrictions in the city.
What I talked about, Tom, was the housing shortage that not only I talk about, but every Washingtonian and every neighborhood talks about, and our need to address providing more affordable housing. My remarks really focused on what the region needs to do. We know we need to do 240,000 new units by 2025. I further explained how we need 36 new 36,000 new units in Washington, D.C. alone, and that every neighborhood has to be a part of that solution. And I think you also know in the last 4 years, we've produced over 6,000 units with our current tools and current laws. If we are going to get to the next level, we all have to be open in our thinking about how to get there. And it's going to take some big ideas. And what I called on in my remarks was we think about more density and taller buildings where they make sense. And that's what I'm asking OP to be focused on, everybody who's working on our comprehensive plan to be focused on about what's going to be the next big thing. Anyone who tells you that we can continue with our current tools and current laws and get to 36,000 units by 2025 is not realistic.
Minneapolis just got rid of its single-family zoning, but could you reassure people that you're aware that the historic heart of the city is not a place where you're talking about bigger buildings in the core of the tourist nation?
If you're talking about the monumental core and do I see a change to the skyline in the monumental core, the answer is no.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you speak to your reappointment of Hansell Gang to be the State Superintendent of Education? In this press release that's been handed out, you state that under Gang's leadership, the District of Columbia has continued to make major strides in student achievement outcomes, and OSSI has taken important steps to sustain, accelerate, and deepen this progress across D.C. Given the substantial criticism you heard during the inauguration ceremonies at the convention center from a substantial number of people, are you concerned that this is really not the change that people believe is needed in the field of education in the District of Columbia by your reappointment of Hansell Gang?
I'm not sure what people you're referring to.
Citizens?
Yes. Yes, actually, I think what we hear from people in the public schools is that they're very confident in the direction that we're going in DC public schools. That they have confidence in their schools, their teachers, the educators, the curriculum. More people are going to DC public schools, and they see a focus on how we are sharing what we know and doing it more and more, and that is why we have instituted the STAR rating system. That is why we challenge our students with PARC assessments, and we continue to look at policies that allow parents to look at a traditional DC public schools, charter schools, and make the best choices for their children.
How did you balance out the number of issues and scandals that have plagued public education in DC when you came to the decision whether or not to reappoint her?
If you're talking about issues, and let's just talk about them in turn. We had a graduation and attendance problem that we know the root causes we found at DCPS, and that we have put policies in place to correct them. If you're referring to the former chancellor, that issue has nothing to do with OSSI, yet we have put policies in place so that everybody that works for DCPS knows what the rules are with discretionary placements. Further, if you're referring to Duke Ellington and the registration problems that were there, I have addressed those issues with OSSI.
So you don't think that even though all these issues occurred on her watch and that she had to have been or should have been aware of them, that it hinders your ability to reappoint her?
The only issue that I connect directly to OSSI is school registration at Duke Ellington, and those have been addressed.
What about the issue of graduation rate? Her office was supposed to be the one that was monitoring the changes in, makeup classes, things like that. You don't think that she's responsible for?
No, I think
not adequately implemented.
I think that the responsibility lied at DCPS largely, and we have spent the last 7 months on correcting those policies. Yes.
Mayor, I saw on your schedule you're heading to Las Vegas on Wednesday for the Consumer Electronics Show. What's the reason for that? What do you hope to accomplish?
We always want our city, and we have some work to do in making sure that the marketplace knows that this is a place to do business, to highlight our technology focus on and innovative solutions that are offered in the district. Especially, it is true in weeks like this where there's a focus on Washington about government shutdown and gridlock. We will promote what the district does to stay on the cutting edge of technology. And so that helps us attract businesses and it helps us attract workers. Yes, sir.
Can you give an update on how negotiations are going between the district and BW Hospital on a new hospital east of the river?
I can say just a couple of things. We have requests for additional information out to Howard University and George Washington University.
In that same vein, do you know when a definitive agreement might come down to the council?
The definitive agreement, the period for exclusive negotiations with George Washington University ends mid-February, and that will be the point at time at which I hope that we have come to an agreement. Yes.
You mentioned the shutdown. It's been a holiday season and people are just now about to start to lose their checks, but there's a ripple effect in the city of services, whether it's carryouts or salons or parking meter. Can you give us any sense of what the impact of the shutdown has been on the city so far, given that you and the governors of Maryland and Virginia have urged the government to reopen?
We don't know yet, Tom, what all the trickle-down effects will be, but you have certainly highlighted a few. What we know from the past is when we've had shorter shutdowns at different points in the year, we didn't see an immediate hit to sales taxes or other economic activity and the like. But we have not had one in December, January following the holidays. So you've mentioned some of the trickle downs that have been mentioned previously, people not being downtown or going out to lunch or shopping or dining or the other kind of food and beverage activity that we see. People riding the metro. I don't think we've talked about that. When the government shut down, you don't have those revenues coming in from the fare gates, yet we are still operating the metro. That's another impact that we have. Contractors who don't know if they will come whole. I was talking to one over the weekend. She's trying to pay her employees as long as she can. At some point, she won't be able to pay them. And because those services won't be provided, she may never be made whole by her contract. So those are things that we continue to be concerned about. From a district point of view, we continue to offer sanitation services in national parks. And we continue to monitor the claims that are coming in for unemployment and making sure that we're staffed up to deal with additional claims. Yes, sir.
So now that there's a new Congress nominated, at least on the House side, it's nominated by Democrats, and they expressed some concerns about the deal that had been kind of in the works regarding RFK and extending the lease for the city, especially around the possible construction of the stadium there for the football team. But what's the strategy moving forward? Are you trying to talk to Democrats and address their concerns about the stadium? Are you still pushing the idea of having a stadium
We
there?
continue to talk to Democrats about RFK, as we have talked to all the members since I have become mayor. It's been no secret that we would vacate RFK for sports use, for primary sports use when the stadium at Buzzard Point was complete. And now soccer is out of RFK completely. So we have an empty stadium now, surrounded by a sea of parking. So it is certainly a priority for all of us that parcel becomes productively used. Yes, Lou.
Mayor, D.C., in spite of its long-standing reputation of being one of the nation's most supportive cities for the LGBT community, both by the executive and the council, In 2019, we saw at least 6 anti-LGBT hate crime assaults. Luckily, the victims did not sustain life-threatening injuries, but it has alarmed many in the community, and I was wondering if you or the chief have talked about any ways that that sort of thing could be prevented.
Well, certainly, Lou, you know, we are very focused on making sure that community feels comfortable making reports to us, and knowing that all reports will be taken seriously, investigated, and that we will seek justice for hate crimes against our LGBT community. And we take all of these crimes very seriously. And while it's anecdotal, I feel that the community knows that they can call the police for help. I don't know if the chief has available or can make a comment about looking back at 2019 and the numbers. I would like to look at the numbers a little bit more closely before I respond to that. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Mayor, going back to the shutdown question, SNAP benefits is the major concern for today. Can you tell us, is your office getting any anxious callers, and is your office providing any guidance to those people who really depend on SNAP benefits?
Let me see if we've had any impact on SNAP. CA?
Thank you, Mayor. We haven't had any impact on SNAP benefits as of yet. We're concerned, though, about the duration of the shutdown, and if we get much towards the end of the month and certainly into the next month, we're going to be even more concerned about those benefits. And so our team are meeting this week to talk about what contingency plans we might need to put in place if, in fact, the shutdown continues and that benefit is jeopardized. And we're likely looking at ways that we can make sure we shore that program up in the short term. So we're exploring that this week.
End of the month, is there any kind of hard deadline that you guys are looking at where this will all expire?
That's unclear yet. We continue to work with, as best we can through our Federal Affairs Office with the Department of Agriculture, to make sure that we understand, is there an exact date and when the funds stop to flowing? And that's part of what we'll be working on this week to determine if we can get any greater clarity from the federal government as to when, if and or when exactly those funds will become unavailable to states, including the District of Columbia.
Yes, Mark.
Mayor, 2018 closed out with a significant increase in homicides. 2019 has started out with another significant increase in homicides. What do you tell the residents of the District of Columbia who are worried about this trend?
We're just as concerned as they are, and as I mentioned last week, our focus continues to be on how we deploy our officers and resources to focus on illegal guns, focus on repeat violent offenders, work hand in hand with our federal partners so that they are taking gun crime as seriously as we are, and protecting us against people who have demonstrated that they are willing to use guns in our city. The chief continues to work with the command staff day in and day out to assure that they are deployed in the places that they need to be deployed. That, of course, is one part of our solution. And we worked hand in hand with the council in the last year to implement strategies that we all know can have an impact. We haven't seen it yet, but can have an impact on violence. And that's our violence interruption programs at the ONE's office, and also being deployed out of the Attorney General's office. So we can continue to focus on that. Our opportunity efforts are robust. How do we get people into second chance jobs? That's why part of the record ceiling legislation that I talked about earlier is so important. We know many people, if they have opportunity, they won't be involved in criminal activity, and they can be safer. I would like the chief to come up and talk about the status of several investigations. And I think many of you reported, and we were pleased that we got a huge amount of heroin off the streets and illegal guns seized out of a home in Ward 7 last week, which we are hopeful will see benefits from accrue in the coming weeks, but the chief may have some additional reports.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. As you know, we had 5 homicides over the weekend. 2 of them occurred as a result of a fire. in the 3300 block of Eli Place Southeast. The way I understand it is that DC Fire and EMS was responding to another fire when they located the fire in the 3300 block of Eli. After the building was secured, 2 bodies were recovered from the scene, an adult male and an adult female. I've been in conversations with the chief medical examiner throughout the weekend, and it appears that because of the condition of the bodies that they were both homicides, and it wasn't the fire that caused their death. We also had a domestic homicide in the 2800 block of Wisconsin. That was an adult male suffering multiple stab wounds. We've made an arrest in that case. The suspect that was arrested is an active duty Marine stationed down at Quantico. And we also had a homicide in the unit block of O Street. Don't have a lot of details on that right now. We had a vehicle that was in the block. We had an officer nearby who heard gunshots. When they responded, they found an adult male suffering from gunshot wounds in the block. He was taken to a local hospital where he was pronounced dead. And then last night in the 800 block of Varnum Street Northwest, very similar. We had a vehicle with the doors open. We had an adult male that was suffering from gunshot wounds. We have a lookout in that case for 2 males leaving the scene, one with a white hoodie and one with a black hoodie.
Do you have a suspect in that case?
We've made some pretty good progress in that case, but I would not say we have a suspect. A lot of that case is going to require some pretty significant forensic work, so that may take us a bit. But we have made some pretty good progress. I'm sorry?
Motive?
We do not have a motive.
And can you tell us the condition of the bodies? Were they together? Did it appear?
They were found in separate parts of the home. I'm not going to discuss the nature of the injuries. Dr. Mitchell has determined that it was a homicide. The manner in which the homicide was committed is going to require some more tests by the chief medical examiner.
Chief, on Eli Place also, is this progress that you're making a person of interest who's locked up on another crime, charged with another crime?
We've made progress in the case in that we've identified some folks who have given us some pretty good information in the case. We don't have a suspect at this time.
Chief, could you comment on the apparent tiff between you and Charles Allen, the chairman of the Judiciary Committee and the council? Are you guys still on the same page? Have you talked more since this reported difference between you guys and you being critical of what he did this past summer and what he said about you last week?
Yeah.
Are we on that because are you on the same page?
The chairman of the judiciary and I have a very good relationship. We meet on a frequent basis. Oftentimes we go to breakfast to discuss how we can better improve public safety in the District of Columbia. So I know sometimes we write articles and try to cause problems, but I like the council member just as much as I did on Friday before the article was written.
We write articles to cause problems? Did I get that correct? I know you weren't.
I would never say that, Tom. Never in a million years.
Are you suggesting?
But I'll just say this, that it's going to take cooperation amongst the police department, all the city agencies, and the council to have an impact on violence in our city. And I'm not going to let any exchange of words or anything like that get in the way.
Chief, can you update us on the shooting on 295?
Yeah, early this morning, about 1 o'clock this morning, it appears to be a road rage incident. We had an adult female who was traveling northbound on 295 at the Martin Luther King exit, and it appears there was some kind of a dispute with another vehicle. The other vehicle opened fire. She suffered non-life-threatening gunshot wounds.
Chief, I want to ask you about illegal firearms. You often put out pictures of the weapons that you're taking off the street. And as you said to me the other day, it's an issue near and dear to your heart is getting these illegal firearms off the street. My question is, are you seeing more illegal firearms in the city than you've ever seen before? And secondly, if you're seeing so many, do you think you need to add resources to your gun recovery unit? Do you need a second unit? Do you need more resources?
We're doing a pretty good job of recovering illegal firearms from our community. Clearly, we don't get them all. One of the things that I get a little frustrated with is that the consequences for carrying illegal firearms is not changing behavior. And I've had that conversation with my criminal justice partners. As you can see, our federal partners are engaged with us on this issue. You look at the seizure we announced last Friday, where we got over 40 kilos of heroin, and we got as many as 15 firearms from 2 people. Both of those people from that investigation suggested that they were actually selling firearms in our Northeast neighborhoods. I think those types of things, continuing to go out and get the illegal firearms, to work cooperatively with our federal partners, and then that last piece, getting all of our criminal justice partners engaged on the idea of having consequences that change behavior for people who are inclined to pick up illegal firearms and use them in our city. I think if we do all of those things, we're gonna start to turn this thing around. Yes.
Chief, back to the Eli Place investigation. There was a second location that also had a fire you had mentioned. Is that also part of this homicide investigation?
We're looking to see if those 2 are associated. So at that case in the 3300 block of D Street, there was also an assault that occurred at that location, and we have made an arrest in that assault case. So we're trying to see, because they're in close proximity, as you know, the 2 locations, and there were fires at both locations. There is some information to suggest that the fire on 3300 block of D Street was intentionally set. Obviously, there's information to suggest that the one on Eli was intentionally set. So that's a lot of coincidences we got to look at and see if they're associated.
I talked to the family of one of the 2 victims, and they said that the older man that was killed, the 60-year-old, that he was a long-time employee with MPD. Do you have any information on
Yes, he had retired from as a civilian employee back in 2006 from MPD. Yes.
We're actually hoping to ask the mayor a question.
Great.
Yes.
No, we're not trying to get that. Just trying to get back to what Tom had kind of started with, the fact that in your inaugural speech you said 36,000 units of housing over the next 6 some odd years. That's 2 or 3 times what DC generally produces over that same time period. So can you give us actually some specifics, maybe Deputy Mayor Kang, maybe Director of Office of Planning? How do you do that? You know, what do you actually have to change in the district to make that possible? Is it a comprehensive plan? Is it, you know, kind of specifics about zoning? Is it making it easier to build more quickly? Like, what do you do?
We're talking about that now, Martin. So I don't want to tell you that we have the whole prescription ready. We know some things that have helped us get to a steady clip at 6,000 in 4 years. We think at that same clip we could get to 10,000 in 4 years. And that includes having a steady flow of housing production trust fund money. That has included just a real focus on also making sure that that money is predictably distributed and that we attract more private sector partners to work with us on distributing those funds. We have also created a preservation fund that has been a little bit more flexible and has also attracted private sector dollars. So it means doing that as well. It means some things that we haven't done is looking at we haven't done comprehensively looking at our public housing units and how we can attract more investment in more units related to our public housing developments. It looks at making the most of some unused land currently, including RFK and Poplar Point and the remainder of St. Elizabeth's, and finally delivering at McMillan. So it means all of those things. It means are we taxing our affordable housing units appropriately? Do we have the right regulatory processes in place to deliver affordable housing more quickly? So all of those things we know can contribute to delivering units faster.
Subject, the framework for the comprehensive plan will be before the council. It says crucial to what happens next in terms of development.
Is it crucial?
Right.
We obviously think it's crucial, Tom. We introduced it last spring, and we haven't gotten any action, although the chairman tells me that he's trying to get to it. I don't know if he shared that with you before the budget season starts, but that's only one part of the plan. And we thought it was important to put that in front of the public and the council for comment because it will make the second part of the plan that much easier because it all rests on the definitions that are in the framework. What I really want to call everybody to think about because none of these issues are easy. Hands down, the number one issue among DC residents is affordable housing, hands down. And so we are all called on to think big and differently about how we deliver more units in our city. And that doesn't mean that we can do everything just the way we've always done it. We have to think bigger about it. Yes, I'm going to take a couple of more. Press question? Tell me your name, please.
Amanda Chen from World Journal.
Okay.
Yes. I just realized that the OAPI's director, Debbie Doge, left, right? So when are you going to pick the new one? And I know there's a acting one.
Yes.
Do you have a candidate for the?
We are. David Doe is serving in a interim capacity in another agency right now at For Hire Vehicles. And as I make some decisions about For Hire Vehicles, I will then make decisions about the Mayor's Office of Asian and Pacific Islanders. We are very confident in the interim leader there, but I would expect no later than mid-February we would have an answer. Yes, sir.
Mayor Bowser, can you update us on where things stand with your administration's proposal to tax and regulate marijuana?
We hope soon to be in this room to talk about a piece of legislation.
When?
I don't know yet. Soon. I'm not being coy, but we'll have something soon.
And as a follow-up, how did you choose the bills that you announced today as like your first big legislative salvo?
Well, not to be too inside baseball, but twice a year I talk to all of my directors about the important pieces of legislation that we've been working on. We advance, a big package of legislation at the beginning of every council period. At the end of every council period, we see what didn't happen, what didn't make it through, and we kind of judge then what can make the biggest difference for DC residents. How much work have we been put into it? Have we, try to work with people on all sides to eliminate as much conflict about the legislation, and these three pieces have done that. They're hugely important to public safety in our city. We've spent over a year negotiating between all sides, and this, in our view, these pieces are ready to move. Thank you very much, everybody.